who also are a very gifted painter, like your mother. And one of your fellow classmates was a guy named Andy Warhol.
Mm-hmm.
And I always said, Lois, someday I'm going to ask you about that. And now's the time.
Okay.
Tell me about Andy Warhol.
Okay. Well, he was in my class at Carnegie, and our class was made up of all the fellas that came back from World War II. And so he and I and a few others were unusual in that we were just out of high school, and the rest were seasoned artists or art directors, and they came back with the GI Bill so they could be in school again. And so Andy and I struggled, and we both were failing. And actually, I understood later that Andy was actually released. I mean, he was dropped out of the school. But one of the professors insisted that he had talent, and so they reinstated him. But so later in our junior year, by golly, Andy and I got Mrs. Porter's Prize for Progress, and we each were given $20 for that award.
Wow.
So that's my claim to fame, that I got that along with Andy Warhol. But he was a very quiet student, and he hadn't very little money, so he didn't participate in some of the out-of-school, things. But he was, and he was always kind of back in the corner and doing his own thing. So when he was coming up to Jamestown, we heard about it and called to see if they wouldn't like to get together, his group. And so that's when we had them to our house, now your house, and that was quite an occasion. Yeah.
And he continued not only to remember you, but you caught up with him later in New York City, didn't you?
Mm-hmm. Yes, he said next time we came to New York to be sure and come and see him. And we did go to his, it was not the factory in those days, it was after the factory. And he had new offices, and it was a little more upbeat. And so he offered us to have a Marilyn, one of his prints. And so we selected one that we still have and think it's kind of fun. So.
What's your impression of Andy Warhol? Now that you are, fellow classmate,
Mm-hmm.
Joint prize winner with him, and you see the celebrity he's had, does this surprise you?
Well, it did if I thought about what he was like in college days. But when he left New York, or Pittsburgh, he went right to New York with some other of my classmates, and he just got right on the bandwagon. I mean, he had a talent, and he started with doing shoes for Mademoiselle magazine, and he just went on, and he just took advantage of all the situations, and I know people either hate him or love him, but he really made the most out. He showed our culture the way it was. I mean, from the soup cans to the repetition of the way commercialism is. And I remember he said to me, well, probably we're not going to see as much art, it's going to be more photography. And of course he was so right. And the multiplication of the photographs, so I'm not surprised, but he had a strange personality. But I still love to read. I have a whole stack of stuff about Andy because people have sent me articles that I've missed, and I asked the people at the museum down in Pittsburgh, the Warhol Museum, if they needed any of this material, but they said no. They've got so much that they don't. Oh, there's a group that's coming by that just we're meeting in the other room. We're
Celebrity.
Yes.
Andy Warhol's classmate, that's right.
My 15 minutes of fame. Okay.
This has been a great experience. Thank you.
Thank you, Greg.
The nice thing is this.
I just wanted to mention that Lois and Andy, it was tough competition because most of the people in their class were returned veterans who had had art experience outside of college, and they were very capable people. But Lois and Andy struggled with homework like crazy, and they were in jeopardy in their class rankings. And lo and behold, one of the professors helped Andy and felt he had an unknown talent. And lo and behold, and they buckled down and did better in their junior year, was it, Lloyd? You won Mrs. Potter's Prize for Progress, which was a $20 gift, and they each won. What? Lois as the gal and Andy as the guy. I've never forgotten that. But one of the nice things about having somebody in the art world, I probably shouldn't mention this, but my friend Frank Scarpella and I grew up together. He went in the service, I went in the service. We came back, we went to Pitt together, and I said to Frank one day, you know, they're having a nude model to draw over at Lois's class today. So lo and behold, we decided we better scoot over there and peek through the door, which we did. But anyway, these artists are quite a wonderful, unique people. Did you have something?
Enough.
Well, and you hosted, by the way, at the house, you actually hosted Andy Warhol. So,
Well, yeah, we had a party after the JCC affair, which Mrs. Weeks, if you recall, was very, very offended by the movie that he showed at JCC. And she really made it known that that was a very unfortunate evening, in her opinion.
now my children don't believe that Andy Warhol was actually in the house to which they're now at. So talk about what happened that night, because they'll love this piece.
Well,
At your house.
He and I took him out on the porch so we could see the lake, and we looked over that, and he said, "Gee, I think maybe I'll come up here and make a movie." And I thought, "Oh, brother." But anyway, we had a nice evening, and with I think some local people, and he had a contingency with him, Viva and. What was her
Paul
name?
Morrissey, Paul Morrissey.
Bob Morrissey.
Paul Morrissey, his businessman.
Yeah.
Viva.
And when we had dinner,
Viva.
Yeah. But who arranged the evening?
Bob Hagstrom.
Bob Hagstrom was really the person that invited him here and got us going. And we went into the town club, which was packed that night, for dinner. And he had made a reservation for about 10 of us in the center of the main dining room. And of course, Andy's dressed in sort of strange clothes, and Viva has on riding breeches and boots. And I thought, holy simoly, I'm going to lose all my business in Jamestown. People see me out cavorting around with these folks. But really, it turned out to be a great experience, and it's hard to really appreciate all that he's accomplished, isn't it? I never would have guessed that these paintings and Campbell soup cans and things would sell for millions and millions of dollars. If you haven't been to the Andy Warhol Museum in Pittsburgh, it's on the lower north side, and it's very interesting. To see, go through there and see what he's done. And if you have a chance to do that someday, I would urge you to.